The new CEO fired me on her first day. Mason Graves, your era is over, she said, while the orchids I brought were still in my hands. She didn't know that. 3 days earlier, I'd signed some papers. The next morning, the assistant burst in, panicking. You need to see this. Hey, Reddit, grab some popcorn, buckle up, and get ready for the most savage work drama you'll read this week. Here's how my new CEO got humbled. Real fast, after she thought she could fire me on day one. Name's Mason, 48 male. And there I was, standing outside the conference room at 8:50 a.m. on a Wednesday, holding a bouquet of white orchids. 23 years at Silvergate Logistics, and I still bought into garbage like team building and welcoming new leadership. Feel free roast me. I deserve it. The orchids were for Victoria Sterling, the new CEO. The woman had a reputation that could frost glass. Yale MBA, 4 company turnarounds, known for cutting staff like she was trimming hedges. She'd already axed a vendor contract that was bleeding us $315,000 annually and pushed our warehouse efficiency from 93% to 95% in her first week. The woman was sharp. Fine. I'd outlasted 3 CEOs already. I knocked twice and walked in. Victoria sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 suits I'd never seen before. Younger guys. Expensive watches. Morning, I smiled, holding up the flowers. Thought I'd... Mason Graves. Your era here is over. My stomach dropped. She slid a manila envelope across the table like she was serving divorce papers. No pleasantries. You're terminated. Effective immediately. Security's waiting outside. I stood there holding the orchids like an idiot. 23 years. The Seattle shipment disaster, where customs flagged everything for 4 days, cost us $165,000 in penalties, but I fixed it. The 2019 audit I caught that saved the company $7.8 million. My brother's wedding I missed because of a system crash that only I knew how to unfry. None of it mattered to this woman. This is about evolution. Silvergate must shed its dead weight to survive in the modern market. Your departure sends a message about our commitment to change. Dead weight! One of the suits actually smirked. The other one had his phone out, recording. Victoria wanted this documented, probably planned to show it to the board later as proof she could make tough decisions. The smirking suit had a legal pad with my name at the top. They'd prepared talking points for my firing. Security showed up 40 seconds later. Outside contractors. Victoria had planned this like a military operation. I picked up the envelope, left the orchids sitting there like a memorial, walked out of that conference room trying not to look like I'd just been kicked in the stomach. Behind me, Victoria's voice, smooth as ice. Excellent. Now let's discuss the restructuring timeline. My office looked pathetic when you knew you were leaving it. 19 years in this space. Security handed me a cardboard box. The taller guard looked uncomfortable. Guy had worked building security for 6 years. We'd talked about his daughter's soccer games, his wife's bakery business. Now he was supervising my removal like I'd stolen company laptops. Sorry, Mr. Graves, he muttered. Orders. A chipped coffee mug. A brass nameplate. To Mason Graves, a man who delivers. Some photos. That was it. Through the glass walls, Frank caught my eye, gave a small nod. That was all we could risk. Down the hall, Carol from HR had her hand over her mouth. Stephen Park turned away from his computer, face red. My phone buzzed with texts from Carol, Sean, Frank, all saying the same thing. The hallway went quiet when I walked through with my box. 47 employees on that floor. Not one of them made eye contact. That's what fear does. Victoria had been CEO for 7 days, and already everyone knew crossing her meant unemployment. I sat down for exactly 20 seconds. Let myself feel the anger, the humiliation, the exhaustion of giving everything and getting removed like that. 20 seconds. Then I stood up, grabbed my box, and walked out. The elevator ride down felt like descending into hell. The lobby went silent when I walked through. The guards looked miserable. Take care, Mr. Graves, Vincent said. Outside, Portland was drizzling. Bobby's pickup pulled up, horn blasting. Bobby leaned out, shirt stained with grease. Are you getting in or planning to stand there looking tragic? High school buddy owns a tow yard. Carol called. Said you might need extraction. He jerked his thumb at the truck bed. Toss the box back there. I loaded it in. He'd secured it with bungee cords. He pulled onto the street. What are you going to do? Haven't decided yet. That was a complete lie. I knew exactly what I was about to do. Bobby drove me home, helped carry the box up. You need anything, call me. Bail money, getaway driver, slash tires. I'm your guy. After he left, I opened the severance envelope. 6 months salary, benefits through December, Standard non-disparagement clause. The NDA was tight, couldn't discuss operations, clients, or processes for 24 months. One exception buried in the fine print: departing executives retain shareholder communication rights per state corporate law. Victoria's lawyers had missed that, probably rushed the paperwork to match her aggressive timeline. That one sentence was going to cost her everything. I signed it. They wanted me quiet? Sure, I'd be quiet. For exactly 72 more hours. 3 days before that conference room execution, my phone rang at 10 p.m. on a Sunday. Lawrence Blackwell. Lawrence didn't call unless buildings were on fire. Silvergate's founder, retired in 2021. Mason, need to see you. Tonight. 30 minutes later, I was in his study. Lawrence looked sharp. No retired guy in slippers. He was dressed like he'd just come from a board meeting. The study smelled like old books and expensive furniture. Maps of our shipping routes covered one wall. Photos from Silvergate's early days covered another. Lawrence standing in front of the original warehouse in 1989. Crew of 8 guys. Now we employed 847 people across 6 states. The board's making a catastrophic mistake with Victoria. She's going to gut this company for quarterly numbers and move on. He pushed papers across the desk. I still own 44% of voting shares. The board thinks I'm harmless. They're wrong. Legal documents. Transfer agreements. My name showed up 7 times on the first page. I'm selling you my shares. All of them. 4.7 million. Lawrence, I don't have payment structured over 8 years. First installment next quarter. He leaned back. Been setting this up quietly for 4 months. You just need to sign. I paused. Why me? 23 years. You've never once put yourself before this company. I know you missed your brother's wedding. Turned down 4 job offers that would have tripled your salary. That's not butt kissing. That's loyalty. Lawrence pulled out a fountain pen. This was mine when I signed Silvergate's founding documents. He set it in my hand. Inscription read, "Build something that endures. If you sign, you own 44%. Majority shareholder. Victoria reports to you. But we keep this quiet for 72 hours. I want to see who shows their real face when they think you're powerless." I stared at the paperwork. This was either the opportunity of a lifetime or the most elaborate trap in business history. The documents were thorough. Page after page of transfer clauses, payment schedules, governance rights. Lawrence's lawyer had built this thing like a fortress. Every potential challenge already addressed. The board's going to fight this. The board follows power. Once they realize you hold the keys, they'll fall in line. He smiled. Victoria's going to fire someone publicly. She needs a sacrifice for her new era narrative. I signed every page. Filing goes through Tuesday morning. By Wednesday, you're the owner. Before I left, Lawrence made one more call. To my ex-wife. Danielle and I stayed civil after splitting in 2018. She's a CPA who specializes in corporate warfare, sharp as broken glass. We divorced because I was married to Silvergate more than her. She showed up 40 minutes later. She looked at Lawrence's paperwork. You're buying the company that ruined your personal life. This better be worth it, Lawrence explained. Danielle listened, then started flipping through documents. Section 9.2, she said, pointing to the page. Any shareholder with 42% or more has final approval authority on major personnel decisions. Budget allocations over 1.9 million structural changes. That's your nuclear option. Will it hold? Written in 1989. Never amended. Danielle looked at Lawrence. You made sure of that, didn't you? Lawrence just smiled. She spent 90 minutes finding weaknesses, flagging potential board challenges, outlining the filing sequence. Every time she found a potential problem, Lawrence had already addressed it. The documents were bulletproof. You'll own 44% Tuesday morning. Triggers Section 9.2 automatically. The board needs unanimous agreement to override you. Never happening. So I'm protected. You're bulletproof. Danielle pulled out her laptop. Drafting 2 documents. 1 pager for the board. The second document is a ready-to-vote motion. They vote yes or no. No stalling. 50 minutes later, both documents finished. The motion made voting no a violation of corporate bylaws. Shareholder lawsuit territory. You're making compliance easier than resistance, Lawrence observed. Basic corporate warfare. Danielle saved everything. Mason, send these 40 minutes before Friday's meeting. After she left, Lawrence and I reviewed the timeline. File Tuesday. Get fired Wednesday. Let Victoria run wild for 72 hours. Friday morning, drop the nuke. I drove home with signed documents in my passenger seat. My phone buzzed. Danielle, you're going to be fine. Trust the process. Also, dinner somewhere expensive when this is over. You're buying. I texted back, deal. Tuesday, 7:30 a.m. The ownership transfer filed. Danielle had timed it perfectly. The Secretary of State opened at 7, documents processed by 7:18, confirmed by 7:30. My phone buzzed. Danielle. Official. You're the owner. Try not to screw it up immediately. Wednesday came. Got fired, walked out, got picked up by Bobby. That afternoon, Danielle called. Heard what happened. Scan me your severance package. I scanned it over. She went silent for 12 minutes. You're clear. Standard NDA, nothing touches your shareholder status. They didn't even think to include it. More typing. Finalizing the one-pager now. What about the motion? They're voting on whether to formally recognize it and adjust governance. If they vote no, they breach bylaws. I'm spelling that out clearly. Thursday morning, Bobby called. Got a job for you. I don't need... It's tactical. Lawrence called. The board's been trying to reach you. They're nervous. Bobby paused. Danielle needs certified documents. The Secretary of State closes at 5 p.m. She's stuck in meetings until 4 p.m., so I'm running emergency courier. Pick up at 4 o'clock. Secretary of State by 5 o'clock. Overnight to Foster's house. He wakes up Friday with official documents. The elevators in Danielle's building break a lot, don't they? They're gonna break at 3:45, Bobby laughed. Billing you $94 for expedited delivery, $17 for elevator trauma, $26 for existential dread of government bureaucracy. Existential dread? Line item. Take it or leave it. I took it. Thursday, 4 p.m. Bobby picked up certified documents. By 5, official state stamps on everything. By 8, overnight courier to Gerald Foster. Gerald Foster was the kind of board member who read everything 3 times before voting. Exactly the guy you wanted receiving legal documents that would flip his entire understanding of company ownership. He'd verify every detail before Friday's meeting. Bobby had gift-wrapped the envelope. Red ribbon, the works. Made it impossible to ignore sitting on Foster's front porch at 6 a.m. Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. Danielle texted out of nowhere. Stop overthinking. Bylaws are clear. Motion is bulletproof. Show up calm. Let documents do the work. How'd you know I was awake? Because you're you. You overthink literally everything. It's why we got divorced. Now sleep. You've got a board to dominate tomorrow. Got maybe 3 hours. Woke at 6, made coffee, sat at my kitchen table watching the sky lighten. Today, Victoria Sterling learned she'd fired her own boss. Today, the board realized who actually controlled Silvergate. Thursday morning, I wasn't in the executive conference room, but I had sources. Stephen Park texted, "You need to hear this." Audio file attached. Victoria's voice came through clear. Her first full senior leadership meeting. 23 department heads and managers. Room full of people who'd built careers at Silvergate. We're no longer in the era of sentiment. This company has carried dead weight for too long. Mason Graves represented everything toxic about Silvergate's outdated culture. His departure isn't symbolic. It's necessary surgery. We're removing tumors. Tumors. Right. Risk management, compliance, logistics, all bloated with fossils like Graves. That ends immediately. We rebuild from scratch. Anyone not willing to adapt can follow Graves out the door. Silence. Then Michael. With respect, Mason saved this company multiple times. We're not operating a nostalgia museum. We're building the future. Graves was an anchor. Now he's gone. Discussion over. Recording ended. I sat there for 30 seconds. She hadn't just fired me. She'd made me an example. A warning to anyone who might question her vision. The audio file was timestamped at 9:40 a.m. Victoria had waited less than 2 hours after my termination to start trashing my reputation in front of the entire leadership team. I forwarded the file to Danielle. Response in 53 seconds. She's making this too easy. Publicly trashing a majority shareholder. She called 25 minutes later. Section 13.4 covers executive conduct. What she said violates policy. Can we use that? Establishes reckless leadership. 4 days as CEO already violated conduct policies. She paused. Adding footnote to the motion. Won't be obvious until someone reads carefully. You're terrifying. I'm thorough. After we hung up, I sat with the recording. Victoria's contempt was clear, but so was something else. Desperation. She needed me gone fast because I represented everything she couldn't control. 23 years of relationships, institutional knowledge, loyalty from people who'd worked alongside me through actual crises. She'd walked into Silvergate thinking efficiency metrics and Yale credentials would be enough. Didn't realize companies are built on people, not spreadsheets. My phone buzzed. Frank. They're terrified. Half the managers are updating LinkedIn. Sean. Carol's crying in her office. She thinks she's next. That evening, Bobby called. Package delivered to Gerald Foster's house. Left it wedged in the screen door so he'd trip over it. You're the worst. I'm the best. Foster's gonna open that thing at 6 a.m. with his coffee and choke on his breakfast when he realizes what it means. I started making notes. Victoria had made 17 operational changes in 7 days. 11 of them reversed decisions I'd made over the past 5 years. 4 of those reversals would cost Silvergate money within 6 months. I'd already run projections. She wasn't building a better company. She was building her resume. I wasn't angry anymore. I was patient. And tomorrow, Victoria Sterling would learn the difference. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Friday morning hit different. Woke up without an alarm, brain already running scenarios. The board meeting was at 10 o'clock. Gerald Foster would have found the certified documents on his doorstep when he grabbed his newspaper. That gave him almost 4 hours to panic, call lawyers, and realize how thoroughly Danielle had locked this down. Made coffee, showered, put on the charcoal suit I usually saved for major client meetings. Dark blue tie, simple. My phone stayed quiet until 7:36 a.m. Then it exploded. Text from Gerald Foster. We need to discuss the documents I received this morning. Then from Kenneth. Mason, this is highly irregular. The board should have been consulted. Then from Elaine. Is this ownership transfer legitimate? I didn't respond to any of them. Danielle had been clear. Let them spiral. The transfer was legal, the bylaws were binding, and I owned the company. Then Danielle called. Foster's lawyer contacted me again, asked about negotiation. I told him bylaws aren't negotiable. He went silent. The board's going to try one last play. They'll question the timing. I'm sending you one more document, she said. Summary of potential board objections and your responses. The document hit my email seconds later. 9 objections, each with a 2-sentence response. Clean. You're scary good at this, I said. This is literally what I do. She paused. At 9:30 a.m., I drove to Silvergate Tower. The parking garage felt different. My old spot had been reassigned. Someone from Victoria's team had already taken it. I parked 3 levels down. Bobby called. You ready? Yeah, I am. Want me there? I can show up in my work shirt, make it look like you've got muscle. I've got this. Offer stands. Also, invoicing you $23 for moral support via phone call. The elevator ride up felt longer than usual. Danielle's final text, Section 9.2, that's your nuclear option. The executive conference room was filling up when I arrived. Directors clustered in groups, eyes darting between Gerald Foster and the empty chair at the head, Victoria's chair. But there was another chair now, positioned at the opposite end. A simple placard, majority shareholder. Lawrence must have arranged that. The man understood theater. I stood near the window, hand touching the fountain pen in my pocket. Let them see me. Let them wonder. Gerald Foster walked over, manila envelope in hand. Mason, we need to talk about these documents. We will. In about 3 minutes. This puts the board in a difficult position. The bylaws put the board in a clear position. Section 9.2 defines exactly how this works. Kenneth approached, looking nervous. Mason, no one's questioning the legality, but the optics. The optics are simple. Lawrence sold his shares to someone he trusts. That's his right. At 10, Victoria walked in. Heels clicking hard, eyes scanning until they locked on mine. Controlled fury wrapped in professional ice. She'd prepared for a standard board meeting. What she got was an ambush. She took her position at the head of the table but remained standing. I'm calling this meeting to order, she announced. There's obviously been some confusion this morning. No confusion. I stepped forward, voice calm. Just information you weren't aware of. Every head turned. As of Tuesday morning, I continued, walking slowly toward the empty chair with the placard, I became the majority shareholder of Silvergate Logistics. The paperwork is filed. The ownership transfer is complete, all verified and legal. I reached the chair, pulled out my phone, pulled up the Secretary of State confirmation email, held it up so everyone could see. Anyone who wants to verify can contact the state office. The documentation is public record. Victoria's hands gripped the back of her chair. This is a hostile takeover. This is a legal transfer of shares from the company's founder to someone he trusts. I set my phone down. Lawrence Blackwell owned 44% of voting shares. He sold them to me in a private transaction. That's his right under both corporate law and the company's articles of incorporation. Kenneth cleared his throat. Mason, while this is unexpected, we need to discuss the implications. We will. But first, I'd like to address something. I finally sat down in the majority shareholder chair. 3 days ago, I said, voice steady, I was publicly terminated by Ms. Sterling. She used my departure as a symbol of her new era. Called me a tumor, an anchor drowning this company. Uncomfortable shifting around the table. Victoria's face had gone pale. She didn't know, couldn't have known, that I'd signed ownership papers 3 days before she fired me. So technically, when she terminated my employment and publicly humiliated me in front of senior staff, she was actually firing her own boss. I heard gasps. Now, I continued, Mrs. Sterling's counsel will likely argue this transfer was done in bad faith, but the timeline proves otherwise. The transfer was complete before Ms. Sterling made her decision. I looked directly at Victoria. If anything, your decision to fire me validates Lawrence's concerns about your leadership approach. He worried you'd prioritize symbolic gestures over institutional knowledge. You proved him right. She found her voice. This is absurd. The board hired me to restructure. The board hired you to manage operations, not to unilaterally terminate key personnel without consultation. And what about your judgment? Victoria's voice went sharp. The Seattle reroute in 2017. You gambled on an unverified customs pathway, got the shipment flagged for 4 days, and cost this company $165,000 in penalties. That's the institutional knowledge we're supposed to trust? The room went quiet. She'd done her homework. Cute. You're absolutely right, I said evenly. That reroute was risky. Almost went very bad. But it also kept our clients supplied during a hurricane that shut down the West Coast for 8 days. We lost $165,000 in penalties, but saved $2.1 million in contract cancellations and client defections. I made a judgment call under extreme pressure. Sometimes they work. Sometimes they cost money. But I stayed and fixed it. That shut her up. Gerald looked at his manila envelope, then at me. Your counsel prepared a motion for the board to vote on. She did. It's a formality. The bylaws already define the governance structure. The motion simply asks whether you'll formally recognize it and adjust procedures accordingly. You can vote yes, and we move forward. You can vote no and expose yourselves to shareholder derivative lawsuits for breach of fiduciary duty. The temperature in the room dropped. I just laid out the stakes in language they couldn't misinterpret. Elaine raised her hand. Mason, I think we need time to consult with counsel. Your counsel has already been briefed. Gerald's lawyer spoke with mine yesterday evening and again this morning. He confirmed the bylaws are binding and the transfer is legal. You're welcome to get a second opinion, but it won't change the facts. Victoria stood up straighter, voice sharp. I won't operate under these constraints. If every decision requires board approval, this company will move at a crawl. Then you're welcome to resign, I said flatly. I'm not interested in power struggles or drama. If you can work within the governance structure defined by our bylaws, great. If not, there's the door. For 6 seconds, nobody moved. A silent conversation happened in glances and small nods. I think, Gerald said carefully, we should vote on the motion. All in favor of formally recognizing Mason Graves' majority shareholder status and adjusting governance procedures per Section 9.2 of the corporate bylaws? 9 hands went up. Out of 11 directors, more than enough. Opposed? 1 hand. Victoria's pet director, guy she'd probably promised a promotion. Abstentions? 1 hand. Fence sitter who'd vote with whoever won. The motion carries. Gerald set down his manila envelope. Mr. Graves, the board recognizes your authority as majority shareholder. We'll adjust our procedures accordingly. I stood. Appreciate it. Now, about Ms. Sterling's continued employment. Victoria's eyes blazed, but there was nowhere left to run. The silence after the vote felt like the moment before thunder hits. Victoria remained standing, posture rigid. The director who'd voted against the motion looked uncomfortable. Everyone else just seemed relieved. I let the silence stretch. Ms. Sterling, I said finally, voice even. You have a choice. You can continue as CEO under the governance structure we just voted to recognize. That means major decisions come through the board. Personnel changes above manager level require approval. Budget reallocation over $1.9 million needs sign-off. Or you can resign with a standard severance package and move on to your next opportunity. Her jaw tightened. You're forcing me out. I'm offering you a choice. There's a difference. I picked up the fountain pen, turned it slowly between my fingers. You came here with an aggressive agenda. You wanted to cut deep and restructure fast. Some of those ideas might have merit, but leadership isn't just about cutting. Gerald shifted in his seat. Mason, perhaps we should discuss this in executive session. No need. I kept my eyes on Victoria. Ms. Sterling made her intentions clear in Thursday's leadership meeting. She wants full autonomy to implement her vision. The bylaws don't allow that level of autonomy for anyone, including me. If she can't work within that structure, We're wasting everyone's time. She stared at me for a long moment. Behind her eyes, calculations running. Could she outmaneuver this? Could she convince the board to override the bylaws? Could she salvage any control? Nope, she couldn't. And watching her realize that was better than any severance package. I'll need the weekend to consider, she said finally. You have until Monday morning, 9 a.m. If I don't hear from you by then, the board will assume you've resigned and begin the search for your replacement. I stood up. This meeting is over. I slid the pen back into my pocket and walked toward the door. Behind me, voices erupted. Quiet, urgent conversations. The board was already fracturing into camps. Gerald caught me at the door. Mason, we need to discuss. Monday, I said. Let everyone process this over the weekend. What if Victoria walks? Then she walks. This company existed before her. It'll exist after her. I paused. But I don't think she'll walk. She's too proud to quit. She'll stay and try to outmaneuver me. That's fine. I left the boardroom and headed for the elevator. My phone buzzed. Text from Danielle. How'd it go? Motion passed. 9-1-1. Beautiful. Sending you the updated governance procedures document. Forward it to the board by the end of day. Establishes the new approval workflows before anyone can claim confusion. Text from Bobby. I saw that Yale Ice Queen storm out. She did not look happy. You win? Not yet, but close. I took the elevator down to the lobby. The executive floor felt different now. People weren't avoiding eye contact anymore. A few actually nodded respectfully. Carol from HR passed me in the hallway and mouthed, "Thank you." Outside, Bobby's tow truck was still parked across the street. I walked over. He rolled down the window, backwards cap slightly crooked. Surveillance report. One very angry CEO, 3 confused-looking suits, and a bunch of people who seem way less stressed now. Invoice me for the surveillance. Already did. $76. 2 hours at $38 per hour. Come on. I didn't finish, he interrupted, plus $14 for the emotional weight of watching corporate warfare unfold. He grinned. You killed it in there. Haven't won yet. She's got until Monday to decide. She's gonna quit. Nobody that arrogant sticks around to be someone's subordinate. Bobby pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his console. Speaking of invoices, here's the full accounting. Pickup service after termination. Premium cargo handling. Bungee cord usage. Overnight courier to Foster's house. Elevator emotional trauma. Existential dread of government bureaucracy. Suburban gas surcharge. Surveillance services. Emotional labor watching my boy get disrespected. I did the math. $290. Plus Oregon's weird business service tax. Comes to $300. He handed me the paper. It was written in actual crayon. Blue crayon. Cash or Venmo. Bobby will always be Bobby. I Venmo'd him $330. Keep the change. Generous. I like it. He pocketed his phone. Seriously, though, if you need anything else, you call me. Tire slashing offer still stands. After he drove off, I sat in my car for a minute. Engine running. My phone buzzed. Text from Danielle. Sending additional invoice for Friday board meeting preparation work. Board motion drafting. Additional document review. Stress management during a crisis. And a reminder that I'm always right. Total, $900. Payment due within 30 days. Then another text. Also, dinner reservation for next Friday. That steakhouse downtown you've been avoiding because it's expensive. We're celebrating. You're paying. I smiled and paid her invoice immediately. Added a $150 tip with the note, for making this bulletproof. Her response came back in seconds. Tip accepted. You're learning. That afternoon, I forwarded Danielle's governance procedures document to all 11 board members. It outlined exactly how the new approval process worked. Submission requirements, timelines, voting thresholds, escalation procedures. Everything clearly defined, no room for creative interpretation. Gerald responded within 18 minutes. This is comprehensive. We'll implement immediately. Kenneth. Agreed. This clarifies everything. Elaine. One question about the budget approval threshold. I called her. Spent 20 minutes walking through the logic. Budget allocations under $1.9 million could be approved by department heads and CFO. Anything over needed board review. Standard threshold. Kept small decisions moving while maintaining oversight on major expenditures. That makes sense, Elaine said. I was worried this would create a bureaucratic nightmare. After we hung up, I drove home. Spent the weekend fielding calls from board members, department heads, even a couple competitors who'd somehow heard the news and wanted to explore opportunities. I kept every conversation short and professional. Saturday evening, Lawrence called. Mason, You did excellent work. I had a good teacher. And a terrifying CPA. What's your read on Victoria? She'll resign. And if she doesn't, then Monday's going to be interesting. But I was right. Saturday afternoon, an anonymous source leaked to a business journal about entrenched leadership blocking reforms. The article painted Victoria as a visionary fighting against outdated board members, resistant to change. Subtle jabs at my age, my tenure, my inability to adapt to modern logistics. The article went live at 5:30 p.m. Danielle called. Saw the leak. That's Victoria. Clumsy last shot. Already handled. Sent the board a performance comparison. Numbers don't lie. The comparison showed Victoria's proposed cuts would have eliminated 3 departments that generated 18% of company revenue. Her efficiency gains mostly came from vendor renegotiations that any competent CFO could have done. The warehouse improvements? Those were already scheduled before she arrived. Previous CEO's initiative. Sunday evening, a company-wide email went out from Victoria Sterling. After careful consideration, I've decided to step down as CEO of Silvergate Logistics. While I'm proud of the changes we began implementing, I believe there are differences with the board's direction that make it appropriate for me to pursue other opportunities. I wish Silvergate continued success. Carefully worded to avoid admitting she'd been completely outmaneuvered. My phone exploded. Texts from employees, managers, directors, all asking the same thing. What happens now? I waited, then sent my own company-wide email. Silvergate team, as you've seen, Victoria Sterling has resigned as CEO. The board and I will be announcing our transition plan Monday afternoon. In the meantime, operations continue as normal. Department heads retain their current authority. Questions can be directed to your immediate supervisors. Thank you for your patience during this transition. Mason Graves, majority shareholder. Simple, clear, no drama, just facts. Danielle texted, perfect response. You're actually getting good at this. Bobby. She quit, called it. You owe me a drink. Monday morning, I arrived at Silvergate. The building felt different, lighter. People smiled. A few came up to thank me for saving their jobs, which felt like too much credit, but I accepted it gracefully. The 2:30 meeting went smoother than expected. I proposed Frank Hudson as interim CEO. The board agreed unanimously. Frank had the respect, the experience, and most importantly, he wasn't looking to make a name for himself. He just wanted Silvergate to succeed. We spent the rest of the meeting outlining priorities. I left the office at 5:52, drove home through Portland's gray afternoon. My phone buzzed. Text from Lawrence. Well done. The company's in good hands. Another from Danielle. Steakhouse. Friday, 7:30 p.m. Don't be late. Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. I arrived at Silvergate Tower. The fountain pen stayed in my inside pocket, right over my heart. Vincent at the security desk straightened when he saw me. Good morning, Mr. Graves. Morning, Vincent. How was your weekend? Better than expected, sir. Heard we've got a new CEO. Interim CEO. Frank Hudson. Solid guy. Everyone's saying so. Building feels different. Better. The elevator ride up felt lighter. The past week and a half had been a masterclass in corporate warfare, but we'd come through it. Bruised, maybe, but intact. Frank met me at the elevator. Mason, got a minute before the all-hands? Sure. We walked to his new office, the CEO office, though he'd already moved most of Victoria's aggressive modern furniture out and replaced it with something more practical. Guy had been CEO for about 2 days and already made it feel less like a museum exhibit. I wanted to thank you, he said, closing the door, for trusting me with this. You earned it. 15 years of competence and loyalty. That counts for something. Still, you could have taken the role yourself. Everyone would have understood. I shook my head. I'm better behind the scenes. Always have been. At 10 a.m., Frank held his first all-hands meeting. Company-wide, streamed to all locations. I stood at the back of the main conference room while he talked. He was good at this. Calm, clear, honest about the challenges ahead, but realistic about solutions. The last 2 weeks have been turbulent, Frank said, looking at the camera. People nodded. Started looking like they worked for a company instead of a demolition site. Mason Graves will remain active as board chairman and majority shareholder, Frank continued. His 23 years of institutional knowledge and his commitment to this company's success will guide our strategic decisions. But day-to-day operations will run through me and your department heads. We're going to move forward thoughtfully. After the meeting, employees came up to shake my hand. Thank me for not letting them destroy what we built. I accepted it gracefully, though part of me felt like I'd just done what anyone in my position should have done. Protected what mattered. Then Carol from HR pulled me aside. The morale surveys we ran yesterday show a 52% improvement over last week. That's unprecedented. People feel safe again. Good. That's what matters. Stephen Park stopped me in the hallway. Guy had 20 years at Silvergate, ran the entire West Coast logistics operation. Mason wanted to say thanks. Victoria was planning to outsource my entire department to a contractor in Nevada. Would have killed 73 jobs. Frank already told me that's off the table. Victoria had some aggressive ideas. Then a text came from Bobby. Your boy's crushing it. Also, I'm at the steakhouse Friday. Crashing your dinner. Hope that's cool. I texted him back. Not cool. Too late. Already made a reservation for 3. Danielle said I could come. Friday evening, 7:30 p.m. The steakhouse downtown was exactly as expensive as I remembered. Dark wood, leather booths, the kind of place where the waiter describes each cut of beef like it's a religious experience. Danielle was already there. Business jacket over a vintage concert t-shirt, reading glasses perched on her nose while she reviewed the menu. She looked up when I sat down. You're on time. Shocking. You said non-negotiable. I did. She closed the menu. Porterhouse, medium rare. You're getting the ribeye because you always get the ribeye. Bobby arrived 20 minutes late, work shirt traded for a clean button-up. He slid into the booth next to me. This place is fancy. They've got cloth napkins. What is this, a wedding? Danielle ordered a bottle. We're celebrating. Mason's paying. Might as well make it memorable. Over dinner, we rehashed the past 2 weeks. Every time we got to a good part, Bobby would add some detail I'd forgotten, like how he'd parked the tow truck deliberately in a loading zone across from Silvergate Tower, so security would have to notice it, or how he'd used gift wrap to make Gerald Foster's document delivery look festive. You gift-wrapped legal documents? Danielle asked. Red ribbon and everything. Figured if you're getting life-changing news at 6 a.m. on your doorstep, might as well make it look important. Bobby took a drink. Foster's doorbell camera probably caught me doing it. That footage is legendary. After dinner, after Bobby insisted on ordering dessert because Mason's paying, we sat there satisfied. The drink was gone. The table was covered in empty plates. The waiter had stopped hovering. Danielle pulled out her phone. Moment of truth. Total bill before tip. How bad? $523. Split 3 ways is... Wait, no. You're paying. I'm paying, I agreed. In that case, I'm ordering another dessert to go. Bobby, you want anything? Can they box up a ribeye? 20 minutes later, we left the restaurant carrying takeout containers. On the sidewalk, Bobby clapped me on the shoulder. Proud of you, man. You went from fired to owner in 2 weeks. That's movie material. It was 2.5 weeks, and it wasn't just me. You both... Stop, Danielle interrupted. You're going to say something sentimental and ruin the vibe. Accept the compliment. Move on. Thank you. I laughed. The following Monday, Frank held his first executive leadership meeting. I attended as board chairman. Frank ran it smoothly. After the meeting, Gerald pulled me aside. The board wants to formalize your position. Chairman of the board with appropriate compensation package. You've been the majority shareholder for 2 weeks now and haven't taken a salary. I don't need... You're providing strategic oversight, attending board meetings, reviewing major decisions. That's work. It should be compensated. He handed me a folder. Standard chairman package. $265,000 annual retainer plus stock options. Danielle already reviewed it. Said it was fair market value. You sent this to Danielle? She called me last week and said, quote, if you try to lowball him, I'll make your next audit a living nightmare. So I sent it to her first. Gerald almost smiled. Your ex-wife is terrifying. She really is. I signed the chairman agreement. Gerald was right. The work deserved compensation. I pulled out the fountain pen, looked at it in the fading light. The inscription still read the same. Build something that endures. 23 years of sacrifice had led to this. Not a corner office or a fancy title. Just the quiet knowledge that when I walked away someday, Silvergate would still be standing. The people would still have jobs. The work would continue. That was enough. More than enough. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.